What's up, dude?
Not too much. Just getting ready for a little, another little short trip over to Knoxville. See my sister.
What is she in town for?
Her daughter is in town for some like creativity world championship thing that they do. I don't know. It's a kind of a school thing, but they get in clubs and they figure out like problems together. And it's supposedly pretty cool, but it's the world championships and it's on the UT campus.
So it's like the think tank world championships?
Yeah, she described to me like, they may give you a problem like we need to shoot or catapult a potato over a 10-foot wall and make sure it lands in this exact spot or something. It's like a science kind of thing.
Got it. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, she said it's pretty cool.
Now, is this your sister that lives in Texas, I want to say?
Yeah, she lives in Dallas.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yep. So
that'd be cool. Nice little trip. You can drive by your old Rev 3 stomping grounds. Pour one out.
Oh, I know. I was thinking about joining the cows for an afternoon swim session.
Hey, you could.
I know.
So I think they do it on Thursdays.
They do. They got some special deal going tomorrow. Clean up the river party.
Oh, weak.
Well, I don't know if I think they're still swimming though, but they're going to clean up the river after. I don't know. Maybe I'll help them clean up the Tennessee River.
Phew, good luck with that.
Yeah, well, you got to start somewhere.
That's true. You got to start somewhere. So how are you, how's the body feeling?
I actually feel pretty good. It's the only thing that affects me right now are my hammies still a little bit. They're just a little sore. And usually just when I get up, but, they kind of are like that normally, I think, maybe.
A little tight?
Yeah, I guess they are tight. I don't know. I always try to figure out if they're just feeling weak or tight. I can't figure that out.
Well, with as much as you sit, and they may very well be tight.
Yeah, this is true.
Just the nature of your job, that you have to sit a lot and do editing and your doc. So I would say that's definitely not conducive to mobility and hamstring flexibility.
Yeah. Now, did you do air quotes when you said job?
No, I gave you a legitimate job.
No, I know. It's just like it's really a lifestyle, and our good friend learned that from our good friend Jim.
We did, yeah. The chaplain of the DNS. If you're not familiar with old Jimmy, he is the DNS chaplain of the Crushing Iron Closed Facebook group. So if you ever feeling real down that you can't start an event you signed up for, a year in advance, reach out to Jim.
Yeah,
he'll be able to walk you through the process of how to deal with it. And if you sign up to do a race with your significant other, and then a few weeks beforehand get a great proposition to go deep sea fishing in Key West, he can also walk you through the steps of how to break that news to her. Continue and keep that relationship intact and thriving. So he is a man of immense talent and wisdom, and he's a great asset to have for him.
Oh, absolutely. He's 2 for 2 DNS this year, so he's
2 for 2.
And he's got the big one coming. So we're just all waiting on the edge of our seats for this announcement.
When I say it's looming, it's looming large.
Yes, it is. Ironman Tremblant.
Oh, man. Looming large. You can't go international in DNS. It's just not an option.
Well, you could.
Yeah, I know Canada's a stretch to call international, but, still, it's... we'll see. I got faith. If anybody can pull it out of his hat, we'll see if he can.
Yeah. No, he'll be there strong. And okay, so we've got several of us just finished Chattanooga 70.3, and each of us had our issues. And now it is, I guess, 3 days afterwards, and I personally haven't been doing anything. But when you talk to athletes after, say, a 70.3 or an Olympic or something like that, what's your game plan usually getting back into the week?
I have a pretty... Unless they just have something really, really close coming up, my general recovery week looks pretty much the same.
Okay.
for almost every athlete. And it goes a little bit, and it goes something like this.
All right.
Monday, and I'll pull up a training plan real quick, and I'll read it off to you. I have a Monday. If it's a Sunday race, I have a Monday. Is a quote unquote day off with the within the description says today is a day off, but don't decide to sit on your ass all day. An easy spin or swim would be great to do if possible, or even just a leisurely walk around town, the expo, or out to get something to eat. A day off is fine, but you don't want it to be a day of doing absolutely nothing. Because you're just basically what I like to call, you're just letting the concrete set. And that's basically how you should look at after, whether it's a hard workout or especially a hard race, is you've just poured the concrete. And if you just let it set, it's just going to harden and harden and harden. And in order to loosen it back up is going to take a tremendous amount of effort and pain. Mm-hmm. So the goal is to keep it moving. So a day off, but with a little bit of leisurely stroll would maybe be a little bit of stirring of that concrete, keep it from actually solidifying. And then as the days progress, you just want to delay that and kind of keep it going so you can actually, get a benefit. So Monday is that day off because I recognize a lot of people use the day as travel. And you're usually just sometimes you're not so much physically sore, but you're just mentally and almost emotionally exhausted. So wrapping your mind around doing something like that is really hard. And then Tuesday, I prescribe what I call just an AR ride, which is an active recovery ride. And this is a 1 hour spin on the trainer or on your ride that literally couldn't be. It's like you want to be going so slow that you're afraid that if you barely stop, you might just fall over.
Okay.
It's super easy, cruising. If I'm out doing it, if I'm out in the lab and I've done it before there, I'm clicking off maybe 14 to 15 mile an hour laps.
Okay.
Just super cruising, high spin, just something to keep the legs moving, keep the blood. Because what you want is you want to keep the blood flowing, and you want it to continue to dissipate and move all of that damage and lactate and muscular damage you've done throughout your bloodstream to keep it circulating, not just let it set and again kind of concrete itself. Wednesday, I will prescribe another workout, which is usually just a 2,000 yard swim, super easy. I usually will put in as a note, do the whole thing with the pull buoy, just because you're going to get some leg movement anyway, just because you will kind of semi flutter or your legs will move a little bit in the water. Plus you're pushing off the walls. But I really want is just to kind of get your arms moving, and then what I call just kind of immersing yourself in that cold water helps as well. It's not an ice bath by any means, which we've covered before, but it's just a great way to keep moving and a great way to not have any loading on your body. Mm-hmm. Thursday is another day off, which is just a freebie, and then Friday is another active recovery ride. Saturday is a little bit longer. It's about an hour and a half endurance ride. Again, we're keeping the legs moving, and then Sunday is a swim. So if you notice there's absolutely zero running.
Yeah.
And if it's a 70.3 or a half, or a full, I always do no running. Let's be honest, you're not going to lose. You're not going to lose any fitness running. You just want to be able to have gained the fitness that you just created through the race, and you have done so much damage on running hard off the bike that we want to take that whole week to recover and let your body totally heal itself. So we're looking at 5 workouts over the 7 days and only 2 days off. But what you're looking at is continuing to work out. You're gonna keep and even maintain and gain some fitness from the race, but we're doing stuff that's little to no load bearing, like cycling and swimming. We stay away from the running, and then we'll slowly move into more running the next week.
Okay, that sounds good to me. Do you care if we break down, maybe some of the athletes from the race and kind of look at how they performed and maybe what they weren't happy with and what you're thinking about with each of them going forward? And hopefully we can get a nice cross-section of different things here. Or do you have other ideas?
No, I think I'll just start from the top and we'll kind of go from there. I think we kind of briefly discussed you on the previous podcast. I think yours ultimately comes down to probably a little more volume and a lot more attention to detail.
Okay.
Yeah, you're kind of in that place now to where you know what you're doing, you know when to do it, and you can read your body. But in order to kind of take it to the next level, which is usually the hardest, is when you start to enter that phase of having to pay a little bit more attention to the finer details, which is probably going to be your biggest obstacle.
Yeah.
I think it always has been.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there comes a point where if there is a level you want to get to, then you have to be willing to do the small things really, really well, and not just the bigger picture great.
Right.
Because you can't do it. You have to be able to look at the smaller things, and so I think for you, there's always going to be and this is true with every athlete. Every athlete has a different personality. They need things delivered in a certain manner that is appetizing to them, and that's based on a myriad of factors. For you, the delivery of the plan or the suggestions, is that we just need to find a way for those details to seem not so monotonous and not like busy work, but something that's necessary and that you can integrate into your daily regimen and have it be something that actually excites you versus feel like it's something that you have to do. Mm-hmm. And so that'll be something that, I think you'd probably agree with that.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something we could, we can look at. And, we texted a little bit yesterday about dabbling a little bit with the power meter, which I think would be a great place to start for you. I think, power is one of those things that, can be a really transcendent piece of equipment for a lot of athletes once they reach a certain level. And especially for someone who has access to the lab like you do, when you can look at it a lot and not have to necessarily stress about moving cars 24/7.
Yeah.
Not that you want to obsess about it all the time, but it's a great tool to have to allow you to reach the next level. And more importantly, it is the greatest tool you can use on pacing a race. Mm-hmm. And so for you, I think that's what we're getting at is pacing the bike leg appropriately, to where you don't feel like you're because there comes a point to where you're cycling really, really smart and patient, and then there becomes a point to where you're cycling, then you're holding back. And that's kind of that is like the finest line in the sport of triathlon, in my opinion, is cycling so smart that you're giving away time versus cycling too aggressively to where you're losing time because your run falls apart. So that'd be what I would kind of analyze for you, which is more of a personality and training approach difference than it is an actual physical improvement. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely right on. I also do think, though, that I've been thinking more about general, strength exercises for me, because and maybe like 3 out of my 4 last races. And just to give a little background, my next level is to get, into the top 10 of my age group, basically. And I've been hovering between 15 and 45 or something like that. And I was where I thought I could be at Chattanooga and had a good ride. And as you said, we may have held back a little bit too much on the ride, especially for my run, because I think I could have ran my run if I'd have biked harder. But still, the problem becomes my run. and getting that stronger, getting my legs in a place where I feel like running off the bike. And I think a lot of that has to do with strength training in my hamstrings, because my quads are getting a lot of good work and my bike felt pretty strong. But for whatever reason, when I started, and maybe hill work too, maybe I neglected the hills a little bit too much with my run training, because who knows, maybe that first hill out of Chattanooga could have fired some things up that weren't sitting very well with my body. All right, second. Moving on.
Yeah, I'll move to the recently semi-retired, not retired, already thinking about a comeback, Corey Coggins.
CC.
Yeah, CC, as he's better known to our podcast listeners. His was pretty. I mean, most of these athletes are pretty easy to dissect. I mean, I think all in all, he had a very, very, very good race.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to equate it to something previously, because of the shortened swim. But if you take that out, he improved from last year, and I think I learned a lot as a coach from training him and kind of giving. We kind of convinced ourselves back and forth, I think, that the mountain biking was okay, because he'd send me like these periodic text messages were like, oh, he's like, at some point I'm gonna need to get on my tri bike outside, right?
Mm-hmm.
and I'd be like, not really. If you're, one or two rides, sure, but if you're doing most of your, in my opinion, you don't need it for handling purposes, because if you're mountain biking a lot, that's a much more superior, discipline in terms of bike handling than a tri bike. Now, is it a little bit different handling? Sure, but if you're a great mountain bike handler, you're going to be a much better triathlon bike handler. But it's the muscle groups that you're working, and so we kind of played back and forth with letting him do probably more mountain bike work than I would have prescribed. But when you get text messages or stuff like, I just do not want to get on my tri bike, or I just do not want to get on my trainer, can I go ride my mountain bike? Well, hell yeah, you can. Like if it's an all or nothing, then I'm going to take the all no matter what it is.
Right.
And, it's always better than that. And so I did learn a lot, and his power went up a good bit as well as we trained through. And then he went off, when I started training him, he had just come off a marathon, and his plantar fasciitis had acted up. So he did very minimal to, if any, running for the first probably 5 to 6 weeks we worked together. But then again, we've talked about this before, is cycling can fill a lot of those gaps and kind of meet you in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
His run wasn't great, wasn't as good as he had last year.
Mm-hmm.
It was close, but again, a lot of that I think was the conditions were a little more favorable last year in terms of humidity. But then again, his running wasn't to where we probably could have gotten it to, but then again, he was able to drop 7 minutes off his bike split, which is huge. So all in all, I think, for him, the only improvement would be not really an improvement, but just having a little bit better luck with being a little fresher when it comes to the race, and having to be able to just get some more run volume in. But one thing we also learned, and I think Caleb on this, was that he in the past has liked to have his biggest weekend ever, or before the race, 3 weeks out, and this year we did it 2 weeks out. But that was because he hadn't earned a 3 week out big weekend, because he was still trying to get fitness. He just hadn't done enough work. The two guys that I had that went sub 5 in the 4, they were within 40 seconds of each other. Him and Danny, I think they probably averaged maybe 10 hours a week, if not less. Which bike? Just overall.
Overall, okay.
Yeah, so I think if you look back I think Danny may have never gotten over 10 hours I'm looking just a quick scroll through of his, and I don't think that he did ever get over 10 hours of training. And I think Corey got over it twice. You know, and so it's definitely a, you know, it's not this like 15, 16 hour sport you have to have. Now, is it beneficial? Sure. But anyway, to finish up with him, we learned a lot of good stuff that we could use going forward for next year. But overall, he raced really, really well. You know, he raced to his potential and ability that day, I thought.
Yeah, and unfortunately for me, I agree.
Unfortunately for you, yes. Next to be Joanne Langton. She did really well. She's a really strong swimmer, so she was kind of bummed for the shortened swim because that usually gives her an edge when it comes to her age, specifically within her age group. Swam well as usual. You know, it's kind of hard to tell people swim improvements in a race like this. For her, hers is kind of an overall picture. You know, she's an athlete I've worked with for going on 4 years now, and she did great. I mean, she's never really happy with her run, but she was actually happy with her run. So to me, I was pretty stoked for that. But what I would say for her, and we kind of discussed this earlier, was that she is built. This is the first time she has a pretty pronounced injury history, and this is like a year where we have done really, really, really great in building up her run volume and keeping it there, and keeping her. This is the healthiest she's probably ever been in the years we've worked together, and so she's got Muncie in like 6 or 7 weeks. So we know she already has the base, and this is kind of where we were going into this race anyway. We were still in what I would call the build phase. And now with like 6 to 7 weeks, after this week of recovering, she'll be chomping at the bit to move forward. And what we'll do from here through Muncie is we'll focus swim speed, bike speed, and run speed. You know, we'll definitely gear more towards running faster than race pace. Not a ton of it in terms of running because there's just too much risk there. But in terms of cycling, we'll probably take away a run per week and add an additional bike. Mm-hmm. Probably get another few extra, maybe a couple extra double ride weekends. And she loves to ride her bike, so that works perfectly. And especially, everything will be, and probably a lot of extra extended trainer work, just because the nature of that Muncie course is that the only time you should ever come out of the TT position is if you want to. Not because you have to, mm-hmm. because that course is blazing fast. It is the fastest bike course I've ever been on in my entire life. It's totally closed. It's perfectly paved. It is pancake flat, legitimately. Not goose pond flat. It is legitimately flat. And again, that'll help. So we'll focus in more on speed, and hopefully she gets a whole swim. And that'll be her third time to do Muncie. So that's that's why I love doing or repeating races, is because it gives you a great barometer to use going forward, because you're getting the same course and you're generally going to get close to the same conditions. So that's kind of where we're headed with her. The biggest thing that I was happiest with is she was happy with her run, and we've gotten through. She did Ironman Chattanooga last year, and we have got from there to now. Totally injury free, knocking on wood. So I'm really, really stoked for that, because she is one of those athletes that if she can't train, she goes like a little bonkers. She likes the structure. And if you have training peaks, you know what I mean by this. She's probably had one yellow or red in like the 4 years I've ever worked with her. She does not miss workouts. She gets them in every day, no matter what, unless I make her take a day off. So she's pretty great. No, but good stuff from her. Danny Sturdivant was my other athlete. He killed it. I was really, really happy with his performance. Again, a little discouraged as a coach, selfishly, to not have the whole swim, because I was really looking forward to seeing his swim progress, because he has made a lot of it. I mean, we saw it in his last race a little bit, but I just thought this would be a great barometer for him as well, having raced this last year. And for him, his biggest strength and weakness is he likes to just go, 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 go. He likes to lay the hammer down as soon as you put it in his hand. And so he cramped a lot and walked on the run last year, and he's a phenomenal runner. Just a really gifted runner, natural ability. So for him, it was getting his bike to where it was competitive and it was fast, and then instilling within him the patience and the confidence to be able to hold back a little bit on the bike so he can finally run his close enough to his potential. And I would say of all the athletes that I had, he executed it perfectly. I was really, really, and he was happy with it too. I think that's what he was happiest with was the way that he executed his overall race. But definitely some things we can, think that we can work on. He's struggled a little bit with some flexibility and quad hamstring strength, so that's something that we're going to address through some strength training, lunges and quad stuff like that. Just really strengthen what encapsulates your kneecap in that area that can lead to a lot of IT band stuff. So we'll address something like that. But overall, I mean, I think he said. I think it actually a downfall. Something that he said was, ultimately I'm very pleased with the outcome and I'm okay with the run. I just didn't know how to handle feeling so fresh off the bike other than to hammer it, which I get, and he ran that first mile coming out of transition uphill. He ran that in a 7:07. Yeah. And then the next mile 2 was a 6:52. So I think that while he learned a ton of pacing himself on the bike, now what he'll be able to take over to his next races and ultimately Ironman Chattanooga is I feel great off the bike. That's for a reason. I don't want to necessarily tap into that freshness at mile 1. I want to kind of stave it off. But overall, I mean, he ran like a 1:34 half split. So. I mean, which is outstanding, and overall, I think neither of us had really any complaints at all. But moving forward, there's definitely some of those, like I mentioned before, in talking about you, is there's a few of those finer details that we'll need to nail down. The stuff that you don't want to do because it's not the fun stuff, but it's the stuff that you have to do. So you can continue to do the fun stuff and you can do it faster and better. So we'll do that. And then lastly was Rebecca Appleton. I think if you're a listener, I covered her a little bit on the previous podcast. And then if you're in our Closed Iron group on Facebook, you've seen a lot of posts for her. Hers, I know she was disappointed in her time. I didn't really care so much about the time. I was incredibly impressed with her effort. I think I mentioned that before, and she and I are going to get together for coffee or lunch next week and kind of go over. She's a planner. She likes the details, so we're going to get together and kind of go over the race with a more of a fine tooth comb. But it's a little more difficult to pin down the what we did rights and the what we did wrongs when you have an adverse, abnormal kind of physical ailment that just kind of pops up, which is what happened to her. And that really derailed her race from the beginning. Nothing that we can control, nothing that we ever saw previously, never a symptom in training, just kind of like, hello, hey, here we are, today sounds like a good day, why not the day for 70.3?
Well, yeah, I mean, in her case, I think she would probably say too, is it's that swim stuff and it's the wetsuit, and let's get in the water more. I mean, how you're going to figure that out when it starts getting hot, I don't know, or what you do. I mean, that might be a good thing to address here. I mean, how do you, if you got a race coming up in Canada in August and it's getting hot every day, I mean, I suppose that it could be okay for wetsuit for a little while, but as it gets hotter, how do you know what I mean? How do you train for wetsuit
You can do that a lot in the pool. And then I think you just have to continue to expose yourself, even for small amounts of time. With that wetsuit, regardless of what the outside temperature is. Get to the lake early, or even go to the pool and swim for just a little bit.
In a wetsuit?
Yeah,
Huh.
and there's nothing wrong with that. Especially these days when like half the pools you go to aren't even chlorine anymore; they're saltwater. It's not going to be the water temp isn't going to be like super cool, but it's the air temp that usually gets you.
Yeah.
It's the air temp and the humidity and the mugginess that makes things super hard. So for her, it'll be a lot of that, and we'll go over that next week. Just more fine. She is capable, athletically, in the way she trained of much faster splits, but given the hand that she was dealt, the card she was dealt, she played the best possible hand you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that all the kudos to her for having the mental fortitude and strength to be able to do that. And the good, it's kind of that double-edged sword, is while it may not have been the race that she wanted, I think it's kind of make her hungrier for maybe not missing some workouts, maybe a little more into the detail. She just got a new bike. I mean, she was doing this on she was doing this on Allie's old bike. Mm. That was like, the bikes don't make everything, but she just got a Trek tri-bike that I think is going to really change a lot for her in a good way. But again, that'll be one that we'll need to kind of go a little more into detail with. But I think we'll learn more in the next kind of few races and see smaller ones even that may or may not have a wetsuit, and just kind of see what the turnout is for those. But
yeah, I don't know a lot about triathlon, but in her case, I know that it helps if you can breathe during the race.
It's overrated. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah.
It's totally. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, it's and I think she would too. But so again, that's something that she and I will go over, here next week, but overall, super happy with her effort and sticking with it, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how she bounces back and focuses and executes going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, are we going to? We're trying to have some open water clinics or a tri camp or something. Is this what we're?
Yeah, I've had quite a few emails about having either like an open water skills camp or just an overall triathlon camp. Either I'm looking at either like mid-July, like the weekend after Muncie, because the next weekend I can't do anything. It's Hayden's birthday, and then the next weekend there's a ton of people racing, or that first weekend in August 3 through 6. And we've already had quite a few people chime in on the closed Facebook group. Ross, Chris, Robert, Laura, somebody from Canada, Washington, that are interested in making the trip. So, I'll if you're not a member of the closed of the Crushing Iron group on Facebook, hop in there, search for it, and we'll accept you and add you in. But yeah, a 3 or 4 day training camp that we would spend our time in Anderson Row Beach. We spend our time on the Trace. We spend our time in Shelby Bottoms, Percy Warner, and then definitely some time at the lab. It'd be great. I mean, it's training camps in general are it's a great weekend to get away. If you don't live here in Nashville, to get away and really focus on you. And we'll go over tons of details. You'll get great training in, and honestly, what I would consider some of the best training locations that we have around. I mean, I don't know of any other place like Anderson Row Beach that's such an incredible venue, and that's the picture that I posted on the Facebook page. That's any better for that. And then the Trace, in my opinion, is probably the best riding besides, like the Blue Ridge or Mountain Parkway or whatever it is in North Carolina. and then Shelby and Percy Warner outstanding. But no, I mean, I'm going to put something together soon, kind of an itinerary. But generally speaking, it's like a Thursday night grill out, welcome dinner, go over all the details, maybe a live podcast with an audience. We could do, and then take some questions, and then have at it, and then just jam in as much swimming, cycling, and running as we can. Not just workouts, but details and form and execution and race planning and race nutrition and probably even there's a couple people I'm gonna reach out to and see if they want to be involved in it. But no, so that's it's in the works. It's something I think would be awesome, and it's a great time to get together with people that virtually. But especially if you're a member of the closed group, there are people you kind of know and have had some kind of interaction with. They're just not strangers off the street. That you have something to talk about because you're a like-minded individual. And it's a great time of year too. No matter what you're doing, outside of just a general great learning experience and a great training weekend and a great time to establish new friendships and relationships, it's a great opportunity to get a huge weekend in for a future race and to build on it. So that's something that we'll work on. And but yeah, so that's in the works. So look for a more formal announcement probably within the next week. That way people can plan. And I think I'm going to tell everybody you're going to host them at Trolley Hills.
Yeah, they can all stay here. Bring cots. I've got a huge garage.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah. So we'll send them your way or Rebecca's or something like that. No, but
there's room to crash here for a few people, and I'm sure we could find
first come first serve or highest bidder.
Yeah, and I'm all about it. And I think that's a good segue into what I want to end this with. And I debated whether or not to do this, but I think after going to Chattanooga and hanging out with CC and Rebecca and Bree and Patrick and Mark and just kind of being around a bunch of good friends and experiencing that, and no one knows this, but on the way home I found out one of my closest friends passed away Monday. So it just made me revisit the whole point of like what we're doing and what the sport even means, and for me in life in general, it really does come down to relationships and building friendships and things like that. So I mean, I just think that as hard as it's been, and I have been a little bit down, and we used to go to, I'm a huge Badger fan, and
oh yeah, I know.
And he was the guy who I sort of rekindled my spirit with, and we used to go to the tournaments in Indianapolis, the Big Ten tournaments, and travel around to watch the Final Fours and stuff. So we also were college buddies, and that was sort of our way to get back in touch, and we became very, very close over the last 5 or so years. And it just made me think, and you always want to kind of I guess learn or grow somehow even in the toughest times, and I think that's the lesson that's just been sort of circulating in my head, is that it really does come down to relationships and building friendships, and the race itself and the results and things like that are one thing, but if that's, you remember the good times and you remember the people more than how much the run sucked or whatever, so I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm going to be posting a tribute on Crushing Iron. I know it's not necessarily, it is a little bit triathlon related, but it's just part of, that's my forum, and I like to put stuff out, so I'll be putting that out, and probably also posting, a race analysis from Chattanooga soon, and I want to start writing again and stuff like that. So be grateful of the things you can do and the friends we have and things like that. So I just want to put that out there, and I don't mean to be a bummer. I mean it to be a celebration of life, and never take stuff like that for granted. So
no, that was very well said. I know just from my limited interaction with Pete, like 2 or 3 races I've seen him at, and he's
Yeah,
and it was all such an awesome dude in general, and an awesome kind of spirit. And I know you'll definitely miss him, and I know a lot of people will. But it's it kind of reminds you in the way you don't want to be reminded of how much relationships matter.
Yeah.
And that and that's what it's what hurts us the most when we lose them, because they matter the most. And yeah, so I look forward to reading your posts, and regardless, I think most of our listeners would agree. We may talk about triathlon on this forum a lot, but I wouldn't necessarily consider it still a triathlon only specific podcast. It's we talk triathlon, but it's also about life and what we get out of it and what we learn from it, and I think that fits in as well as anything else we've ever done. So
Yep, I agree, buddy. All right, man. Well, we're going to wrap it up.
Safe trip to Nooga.
Yeah.
Or not Nooga, Knoxville.
Yeah, no, I always get them confused too. Chattanooga, Knoxville. And yeah, join, if you want to get in some of this conversation, get in our closed Facebook group, just search Crushing Iron Group on Facebook, and we'll let you in there. And other than that, iTunes reviews are great. Appreciate it.
Yep.
And
Appreciate it. And look forward to our Monday podcast release. Will be with our 60th actual podcast will be with author Brad Stolberg, who is the co-author of Peak Performance, a book that comes out in June 6th, I believe. He co-wrote it with Steve Magnus. Mike and I were fortunate enough to get some of the advanced copies earlier in the year, and I know that he's pumped for it and has gotten ridiculously awesome reviews. And I'm super pumped to have Brad Stolberg on. And if you're not familiar with him, I encourage you to look him up, read some of his previous work, and just get excited for what's going to for sure be a really, really insightful podcast where I look forward to being a sponge, just soaking it up, man. It's going to be a great experience.
Yeah. I follow him on Twitter and tell him Crushing Iron sent you, and look forward to that, I guess, on Monday. Yeah, Monday. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thanks for checking in, everybody.
Talk to you soon.
All right, buddy. See you.
See you.